Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On the channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today we are continuing our structural story journey and we are discussing chapter structure. If you haven't seen my last video, which was on structuring your novel, then check that out now. That link is above me now because we are now going in a little bit deeper and going to chapter structures. Now, a chapter is a device used by authors to separate the story. This can be to tell the reader now it's time for a break. It can be used to change point of view of a character or to pass through a section of time or even go back in time. It is a structural device for your story. You can also vary the length of your chapter, which also plays a part in how your story is read. For example, if you're writing a thriller, you probably want shorter chapters so it's snappy. If you're writing a piece of literary fiction, you might want longer chapters. It depends. You might also want to have the exact same length per chapter, or you might want to vary your chapter length to give variety as the reader reads. You can also bypass chapters altogether. Writers such as Terry Pratchett don't have any chapters in their books. They just separate it by scene. Comment down below if you would like a video on the difference between chapters and scenes, because these can get confused, and I will make a video on that also. But for today, we know what a chapter is, the various ways it can be used, so let's get into the structure of each chapter. Before we get into that, don't forget if you like what you see to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. So the chapter structure really depends on what kind of book you are writing. For various age groups, you're going to write a chapter a little differently. But as a general guideline or rule, a chapter, if you want it to be snappy or if you want it for the plot, you kind of want to think of a chapter as a mini story structure. So all those structures that we did for the full story, you want your chapter to do likewise. So we'll split this into 3 parts. Part 1, the hook. How are you going to start your chapter? Is it going to start from where the previous chapter left off? Is it going to start with a problem? Is it going to start with an introduction of a new place, of a new scene, of a new person? How will you begin? This is the hook that will get your reader into that chapter and want to keep reading. Part 2, change. This is the middle of the chapter. So something from your hook has to now have changed. For example, if we have a thief and they decide that they want to steal a certain artifact, then in the middle should probably be when they are either making a plan to do this or they are carrying out the theft. They have to be a change from the start. Finally, part 3, end of chapter. Again, this is another choice. You can end on a climax. So your character is partway through something, they're on the edge of a cliff, and then you cut. This will make your reader want to continue reading to the next chapter. Or you could finish with a conclusion of what has changed in that chapter, but always leave a slight question. If you want a slower paced novel, perhaps you don't want to leave any questions. Perhaps you just want to leave it like this. As I said at the beginning, if you're writing literary fiction, for example, in The Guest Cat by Takashi Hirade, this is literary fiction written by a Japanese poet, and each chapter in this ends with a conclusion. Each chapter sort of brings into light something about the people, something that they are working through, and it is a lesson. So you can stop reading this every chapter as a lesson if you would like to. I was addicted to this book, I've read it twice, and I'm going to read it again because it's brilliant. But that is how chapters are used in this, so this would not end on a cliffhanger. However, if we look at stories such as Naomi Novik, A Deadly Education, this is a young adult fantasy. It is all in one place, but each chapter ends on some kind of question or cliffhanger because it is supposed to be a fast, epic read. It wants you to keep reading because you need to find out if these characters are going to live or not. So this one, you're going to find a lot more cliffhangers. If you look into romances, you're also going to find with them, they either end on a cliffhanger of an argument, or they're not speaking, or they end on a disappointment, or on the kiss. So you want to see how far this kiss is going to go. Depending on the book you write, really makes a difference to how the structure works. But in conclusion, your chapter should have 3 parts: the hook, the change, and the climax, or the completion. This is not a strict structure. Chapters are a device used by the author to break up the story. You can technically play with chapters as much as you want. I would recommend playing with the different types of chapters, but when you finish your work and beta readers read your work, they will tell you if a chapter is slogging or if they feel the chapters were too quick, too slow. Some readers love really short chapters because they like to stop reading on the end of a chapter, so if the chapter's too long they might stop reading earlier because they want to finish it before bed. Other people don't care when they finish. They they like longer chapters. Each reader reads differently, so you as the author, you're not going to hit every single reader's personal preference, but you can just make sure you hit the preference of the type of story you are writing. I have done a video on scene structure. If you haven't seen that, that link is above me now. Scenes are the separate parts within a chapter, not the chapter structure, a set scene. As I said, I will make a video on the difference between chapters and scenes, but if you do want to see a scene structure, then go to that video, there's a link above and below me now, and you'll be able to learn about the scene structure. In the next writing tips video, I'm going to go into sentence structure, so we're going really nitty gritty. This is going to be more writing tips of sentence structures, because like chapters, sentences are all very different. Hi guys, Future Robin here, because I kid you not, the day after filming this video you're currently watching on chapter structure, I started reading Erin Morgenstern, The Starless Sea. I've taken off the book cover because it's a hardback and I always read them about the book cover. But this book, Sprayed Edges, has one of the most creative and brilliant ways of using chapters that I've seen in a long while. So this is a perfect example of what you can do creatively with chapters in your novel. I will explain. I am only up to page 24 in this book and I'm already obsessed. But we begin with a chapter of the pirate and the girl. This then moves on to the beginning of the tale of the acolyte. And we then get a story on a young boy. Now the young boy smells of sage because their dad is a storyteller. Now the next chapter we skip to January 2015 and this boy is now a 25-year-old man, and you only know it's that boy because of the reference to sage, but they find a book in the library. Now this book that they find tells the story of a pirate and a girl, followed by an acolyte, followed by a young boy whose story begins but doesn't end. That is that boy. Now the protagonist in this book realizes that is him. He reads the next chapter to see what his story is about, and then it moves on to a story about a doll's house. And I am now on the chapter after the chapter of him realizing he is in that book, and it begins with, it began as a doll house. So this book is following the chapter structure of the book that the protagonist in the book is reading. I'm getting the never-ending story vibes with this book so far, but that is a really creative way to use chapters, because the chapters are a major part of the plot, and what is happening to the protagonist is following on in the chapters in this book. So like the protagonist, you're reading this book going, whoa, because you want to know, how is he in a book that he's just started reading when he's 25, but it's telling a story of when he was a young boy? How do all of these different characters link? And now I just want to know what this dollhouse is, because it's the next chapter that our protagonist is reading as well as the next chapter that I am reading. I'm fangirling hard, but The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, fantastic example of what you can do with chapter structure. So if you haven't read this already, read it. What can I say? Erin Morgenstern I knew was a brilliant writer because I read The Night Circus and absolutely loved it. I'm in love again with her second book, which is The Starless Sea. A creative way to use chapters in your story. This be another way you can use them. Alright, back to past Robin. Future Robin again, because I'm right near the end of this book now. I have under 50 pages left. And something I noticed regarding the chapter structure, apart from, as I've already said in a different Future Robin update, I'm fanning too hard here, the chapter structure is brilliant because they lead into one another, and we've discussed that of this story with the main character, with just, it's fantastic. But another way that this book uses chapter structure really well is at this point in the book, the chapters are getting a lot shorter. They're getting snappier because we're in the climax. So as I've mentioned, good example here of structuring your sentences so they're slower and then speed up when needed based on how the overall structure of your story is going. And that's it for my chapter structure. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching guys. Bye!